The ocean swallowed him whole. Nathan Carter had always prided himself on his resilience. Years of deep-sea exploration had hardened him against fear, against the crushing isolation that came with delving into the ocean's uncharted depths. The Hadal Zone, the deepest, blackest chasms of the sea, was his domain, his obsession. Tonight, that obsession would take him farther than any human had ever gone before. Alone. The vessel above was a mere speck in the distance, its crew voices faint through the radio. He barely paid attention to their check-ins, their reassurances. His real focus was downward, into the unknown. The descent was slow, methodical. The deeper he went, the more the world around him ceased to be familiar. Light had long since abandoned him, replaced by an oppressive, infinite darkness. His headlamp barely cut through it, illuminating only swirls of disturbed sediment and the occasional ghostly flicker of deep-sea creatures slithering out of sight. At 35,000 feet, he reached depths where the pressure alone could reduce a human body to pulp. His suit groaned, reinforced metal and synthetic fabric straining against forces that could crumple a steel submarine. He exhaled steadily, keeping his breathing controlled. The key was not to panic. Then he heard it. A sound that should not have existed there. Faint at first, barely distinguishable from the static hum of his oxygen regulator. A murmur, soft and distant, curling through the abyss. His mind instinctively tried to rationalize it. Maybe a distant sonar echo, maybe the hum of his own blood in his ears. Then it grew stronger. A voice, familiar, intimate. His mother. The breath caught in his throat. The words were warped, stretched as if spoken through deep water, but he recognized them. A lullaby she used to sing when he was a child, before she had wasted away in a hospital bed, skin gray and sunken, her once bright eyes hollowed out by sickness, but she was dead, and the voice was here. He gritted his teeth, shaking off the growing unease. His depth gauge read 36,200 feet. He had to keep going. The ocean floor was close now, only another 1,000 feet. The voice faded. He told himself he had imagined it. The mind plays tricks in isolation, feeding on fear, distorting memories. He had studied this effect, he understood it. But then another voice surfaced, his father, guttural, wet. A fractured whisper repeating his name over and over, a sound like something drowning. Nathan's pulse slammed against his ribs. He flicked his headlamp side to side, scanning the void, but there was nothing. Only the endless black, an expanse of formless cold. A distortion on his sonar. Something big. He froze. At 36,700 feet, he should have been alone. The life forms that thrived here were small, blind things, adapted to darkness. Nothing of significant size should be moving down here, yet something was. His monitor flickered, the sonar returning warped readings, something shifting, moving just beyond his field of vision. The voices multiplied. His sister, who had died in a car crash when he was 18. His childhood best friend, who had hanged himself in college. Even his ex-girlfriend, who had drowned during a dive gone wrong. All of them. Whispering, pleading, screaming. His muscles locked, his body screamed for him to ascend, to flee, but his mind, his relentless obsessive mind, refused to accept this as reality. The sonar bleeped faster, something was rising from the abyss. His lamp flickered over it, a shape that should not exist. Vast, pulsing, a shifting mass of flesh, its surface glistening like the skin of a deep-sea fish, but stretched over something else, something wrong. Mouths, too many to count. They gaped open across its form, grotesque holes where no mouth should be, ringed with writhing tendrilled flesh. Some were human-sized, others large enough to swallow a whale, and from them, Faces emerged. His mother, his father, his sister, their skin pallid, their features twisting, warping, melting in and out of the thing's flesh as if it was trying to wear them like masks. Their mouths moved, but the sounds were all wrong. A chorus of sobs, laughter, bubbles of words half-formed as if spoken by something that understood language but not its meaning. Nathan's breath came fast, ragged. His depth gauge read 36,900 feet. The thing surged toward him, tendrils uncoiled from its mass, gliding through the water like searching fingers. One lashed out, grazing his suit. The touch burned cold, like ice seeping straight into his bones. His vision warped. Memories flooded his mind, not his own, sailors, ancient and forgotten. Trapped in the abyss, bodies crushed, voices stolen, their souls woven into the shifting meat of the thing. He saw their last moments, felt their lungs fill with seawater, heard their screams spiral into eternity. The pressure inside his suit spiked. A warning blared, oxygen depletion imminent. Nathan moved on instinct, his training kicking in. He cut the tether attaching him to the abyss and fired his emergency thrusters. The ascent was brutal. His body screamed as nitrogen bubbles ignited in his bloodstream. His vision blurred, consciousness slipping as his veins boiled. The thing did not pursue, it did not need to, because it had already touched him. Nathan breached the surface, gasping, body convulsing as the research team pulled him aboard. He barely heard them. Their voices were drowned out by something else, a sound deep inside his skull. The whispering had not stopped. His mother's voice, his father's, his sister's. They had followed him back, and when he stared into the mirrored surface of his helmet, he saw them, not reflections, not memories, but faces, pressing against the glass from the inside, their mouths opening in soundless, infinite screams. The abyss had learned him, and now it would never let go.